Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Uh, this is part 3 of the online course, and it will be talking about investigators' responsibilities. Before the principal investigator submits a proposal to the local ethics committee, he should check that he had weighed the benefits against the expected risks of the research proposal on the subject, and the suitability of the study designed to achieve its objectives, and the suitability of the support groups that he has available, and the appropriateness of the informed consent, and the suitability of the research location and available facilities, including what happens in an emergency and the procedures that can be carried out in emergencies. The research proposal must include a summary of the research project. The objectives must be clear, statistical methods and justification for the sample size, justification for using a novel procedure, device, or treatment, that there is a need for something more, and justification for using material that may be risky to the human subjects or to the environment. Also, the research proposal must include the expected timeline for achieving the research, the plan for dealing with dangerous cases, and the plan for disposing of leftover biological samples, and the standard operating procedures and responsibilities of the research team, and the expected results and their potential use. Also, it should include criteria for suspending or terminating the project, and when indicated, a data safety monitoring board or data safety monitoring committee should be appointed independent from the investigator in order to look at the results as they accumulate and to give a signal to the investigator and the local ethics committee for stopping the research if it had achieved its results or if it showed some unfavorable risk. And inclusion and exclusion criteria and methods of selecting participants, and methods to present comprehensive information to the research participants. And in the case of clinical research, the principal investigator should provide a signature log file for those who are involved in looking at the data, and a list of references. What does it mean to sign a proposal? The signature of the principal investigator on the final proposal indicates that he is responsible for all the procedures described, that he will be following it as they had been approved by the local ethics committee, and they will be also followed by his co-investigators, and that he will obtain the informed consent properly as approved and stamped by the ethics committee. Are there some attachments to the proposal? Yes. Number one, justification for not using the usual standard treatment should be an attachment. Ethical considerations should be discussed as part of the proposal. Medical care to the research subjects during and after the research is concluded. The finances of the research and any agreement related to the research. Description, guaranteeing the adequate medical, psychological, and social supervision for the subjects. Informed consent to be provided to the subjects, and that is to be reviewed by the committee and approved and stamped, and it is the informed consent that should be used. And then the compensation or treatment provided to the subjects in case of accident, disability, or death. Examples of research exempted from local committee follow-up. Research done exclusively on publicly available information if the information is publicly accessible and there is no reasonable expectation of violating privacy. Let's look at this example. The use of available information or anonymous human biological material that cannot be linked to the individual if data recording and publishing of results do not reveal the identity of the individual source or the information. Example of research exempted from local ethics committee approval: research involving observation of people in a public place, such as there is no intervention to be done by the investigator, there is no direct interaction with the individuals or groups, and individuals or groups under observation have no reasonable expectation of violation of their privacy. Let's look at this example. An investigator wanted to carry out observation in an airport in order to review the waiting time for travelers to check in. The airport is a public place. He was not taking any videos or audio recordings, and he was not going to identify any of the participants, nor he was going to interact with any of them. Therefore, no ethical approval is needed. Now we go to the consenting process. Consenting in the process, it is not just a signed piece of paper signed by the proposed subjects. The information presented to the potential participants should not influence their free judgment by either making them feel obligated to participate, such as presenting the consent by the treating physician who represents authority in view of the patient, fearing loss of benefits, and should not believe that there will be a significant financial gain. Informed consent, it is to be voluntary and informed. That's the two parts or two conditions for informed consent. It should be informed, and consent means that it should be voluntary. So, freedom that are all the subjects free to choose to participate or not? Are they informed? Have they received sufficient information to make an intelligent choice? Did they perceive the objectives of this research? Do they understand the information provided? And are they competent to make their own decision? So, when obtaining an informed consent, one should explain the project in a manner suitable to the subject's level of education. Usually, we consider average primary or sixth grade education as the standard for comprehension. The one proposing the consent should answer all queries about the proposal and to avoid rushing or using any seduction or coercion. What are the necessary items to be included in the informed consent? Number one, and most important, that the first paragraph of the informed consent should be a clear invitation by the principal investigator to participate in a research project. Number two, what is the title of this research project? Number three, name of the institute that approved the research and the sponsor if there is a sponsor. And number four, what are the objectives of this research? And number five, what to expect as possible benefits. And we went over what is considered a reasonable benefit to the research subject. What is the expected discomfort, harm, or risk to the research subjects or to the society? What are the available alternative treatment outside the research, if any alternative treatment, and if the person rejects the proposal? What is the extent of confidentiality in this research project? And there should be a commitment by the investigator to secure confidentiality of information related to the research subject or participant. What are the necessary items? Again, Number one, the subject or the participant should know what will be required from them, how many extra visits, what blood samples, and so on. Number two, type an amount of blood samples to be taken and their use and disposal of these samples. And number three, that participation is voluntary and the subject has the right to withdraw at any time. And number four, the risk that may result from deciding to withdraw early. And number five, a pledge to supply other information if it may affect the decision of the participant to continue in the project. And number six, the medical procedures and treatments that will be carried. Again, what are the necessary items of the informed consent? The contact numbers of the investigators and the local committee to obtain information or to report any harm that may happen. And then the signature lines for the research subject or his guardian and the investigator. And then the date and location. And it is important, as a consent that is not dated is not a valid consent. Method of compensation in case of any research-related harm, and the expected time frame of the project and the approximate number of subjects that will participate. The right to withdraw. The investigator should be prepared for such possibility in the research and plan to account for its effect on his project. And any attempt to convince the subject not to withdraw should be free of pressure and coercion. Subject must be informed of his right and risks involved, if any, if he withdraws from the research, and any research subject has the right to withdraw at any point during or after the research. Waiver of informed consent. If one is doing research on previously collected samples, what are the conditions to have a waiver of consent granted by the local ethics committee? Informed consent must be obtained for research on samples previously collected for another purpose, for research or for purely medical indication, if it can still be linked to the source. So the condition is that if it is anonymized, the local committee approval may be sufficient if the samples cannot be linked to its source. So this is an example of secondary use. An investigator wanted to write a paper in which they would use an existing data set maintained as a database or an already established registry to collect their information. But neither the PI or any of the other investigators are able to link the information from the database back to the persons from whom the information was originally collected. If no tracing is possible, a completely de-identified data, and therefore no ethical approval is needed. And that concludes this part of the presentation.